Hero, a mythical figure. Those who did not have an adult ceremony in ancient society were not treated as a single human being. Also, they were not recognized as members of that society. This is a global common phenomenon regardless of race, ethnicity, and region. Therefore, there must be a part that deals with social rebirth in all literary works such as tales, myths, legends, and folk tales. We may look at the narrative structure centered on social birth rather than biological birth. It is a mythic structure. The mythic structure is a system that includes commonly referred to as rite of passage or initiation. The basis structure of Loonaverse is also an mythic structure. The rite of passage is the core theme of the Loona MV. In fact, there is one work that laid the foundation for the worldview of Loona. It is the music video of Love Cherry Motion, a solo song by Choerry, the 8th member of Loona. Love Cherry Motion consists of the most solid form of the mythic structure, and not only shares the theme consciousness of all Loona MVs, but also presents most of the core narratives of the Loona MV release later. Let me give you some examples of mythic structures. One day, Gung-ye, who had only been in trouble as a child, heard the secret about his birth from mother. It was the nanny who thought it was his mother. Gung-ye was actually a noble family born as a prince of Shilna. When Gung-ye was born, a rainbow was rising and his teeth were grown. The nanny has been raising it until now after finding that Gung-ye almost killed by others when he was a baby. Because the other family considered his extraordinary birth background was ominous. Afterwards, Gung-ye, who became a monk, waited for the time to promote his power and established Hugalgarayo. Agas, king of Athens, had a lot of worries because he could not have a junior. One day, while returning to Athens after receiving the prophecy, he spent a night with Pythias' daughter, Ithra. Agas put a knife and shoes under a large rock. When Ithra gives birth to a son and the son can lift the rock, he leaves behind telling him to take things under the rock and send them to him. Later, Ithra gave birth to a son named Theseus. At the age of 16, Theseus hears from his mother, Ithra, who is his father, and immediately heads to Athens with a knife and shoes. Theseus, who defeated numerous villains on his way to Athens, becomes Athens' best hero and inherits the throne of his father. Theseus, king of Media, was prophesied that his only grandson would threaten his rule. Eventually, Theseus sends his daughter Mandane far away to the periphery. Mandane's son, Cyrus, was on the verge of being killed several times by his maternal grandfather from the moment he was born. But he survives with the help of people around him. Growing up, Cyrus learned the secret of his birth. Cyrus seeks power to destroy Media and punish his maternal grandfather Theseus. Afterwards, Cyrus conquered all neighboring countries and became the great king who completed the great empire of Persia. The protagonist in the myth grew up to be humble as a child. However, he would realize the secret of birth, that of noble descent. Immediately after enlightenment, he is reborn as a hero. To realize who you are is to realize your identity. This is abandoning the existing life and live a new life. Choerry, the main character of the Love Cherry Motion MV, does not realize at first that she is a member of the Odd Eye Circle and goes well with Hassel and Yogen. Then, she eats cherries, a medium that means initiation, and witnesses various abnormalities. It was only then that she knew who she was. Love Cherry Motion MV borrows the framework of the hero myth itself. Since then, the Loona MV series will feature a work that inherits the heroic mythical elements presented by the Love Cherry Motion MV. Choerry, who met Yogen and Hassel. At this time, Choerry is wearing completely different clothes from Yogen and Hassel. What was the first thing Choerry did when she met her friends? It's about choosing clothes to change. The clothes that Choerry took off is her Odd Eye Circle uniform, which is a hint of her identity. And she changed the same clothes as her friends. Choerry doesn't realize who she is at all. However, Jinso left her cherry on the bed. Now, Choerry eats cherries with hints about her identity. Choerry falls into a Midsummer Night's Dream. Finally, Choerry realized who she was. Choerry became a member of Odd Eye Circle. Icarus Fall by Peter Rubens. Icarus. Pasiphae is the wife of Minos, king of Crete. She covered herself with a wooden cow made by architect Daedalus and committed adultery with a bull. Soon, the head is a bull and the body is a human, half-bull monster Minotaurus. Accordingly, King Minos orders Daedalus to build the labyrinthus, and locks Minotaurus in the labyrinthus. King Minos fed Minotaurus, who was trapped in a labyrinth, a human sacrifice from Athens. Outraged by this, Athens hero Theseus disguised himself as a sacrifice and infiltrated the labyrinth and killed Minotaurus. Meanwhile, Princess Ariadne, the daughter of King Minos, gave birth to Theseus. Princess Ariadne asked Daedalus to let Theseus get out of the labyrinth. Daedalus tells you how to escape the labyrinth by loosening the thread from the entrance. Thanks to this, Theseus, who safely escaped the labyrinth, runs away with Princess Ariadne. King Minos, whose anger has risen to the top of his head, took Daedalus and his son Icarus in a labyrinth. This is because they taught Princess Ariadne how to get out of the labyrinth. Trapped in the labyrinth, Daedalus tried to escape by making wings out of feathers and wax. Ahead of his escape, Daedalus told his son Icarus, "If you fly too high, the heat of the sun will burn your feathers. If you fly too low, the feathers will get wet in the sea and become heavy. You must fly between the sky and the sea." Icarus was excited about flying in the sky with a human body. Icarus didn't even think about listening to father's advice. Icarus was absorbed in flying high in the sky, approached the sun. Eventually, the wings burned down by the heat of the hot sunlight. Icarus fell and died. It is the story of Daedalus and Icarus in Greek mythology. The story of this father and son trying to fly in the sky against the laws of nature stimulated the imagination of many writers and artists. There is also a part about this myth in the lyrics of the solo song Nu Vive. "When I opened my eyes, the way you looked at me was as dazzling as if I couldn't approach you. My heart that I wanted to be like you is filled with you and colored. I'm getting closer to the sun and burning my wings, looking shabby." The narratives commonly symbolized by Icarus in literature and art can be classified into two main categories. One is human arrogance. It is a narrative in which one falls into arrogance and tries to violate the laws of nature but fails due to limitations. The other is adventure, challenge, and longing. Humanity has developed repeatedly challenging and frustrating the laws of nature. Challenges to the unknown world and longing for utopia are always attractive subjects. Icarus, which appears in the lyrics of Nu, is also a narrative that means longing. The speaker in the lyrics of Nu admires someone. To the speaker, the object is so dazzling that it cannot be approached. The speaker believes that she can find his identity in that person and tries to resemble that person, but it doesn't work out the way she wants. The speaker only checks her current status, which can never be that person. Like Icarus, whose wings burned and fell while approaching the sun. However, Nu does not end with the story of Icarus, who fell without reaching an ideal. The real story of Nu lies after the fall. It makes me ask who my face is in the mirror. My heart finally beats in the cold air at dawn air. The moment you looked at me with confidence, you knew my new face. One day, the speaker saw herself in the mirror and feels something is wrong. She thought. Fake one that loses one's true self and only imitates others. Am I the fake one in the mirror? Only then do I realize it. Real myself that I discovered only when I faced myself straight. Identity can be found not in imitating others, but in proudly facing and acknowledging one's appearance. The existence of me that existed from the beginning but did not realize. So, I discovered after realizing my identity is a new mine. This is why the title of Nu has become Nu. Nu is a monumental song in the Loonaverse. Previously, title songs released by Loona have only differentiated genres and concepts to highlight the individuality of each member, but the song itself has never been related to the Loonaverse. However, Nu is the first title song of Loona to share the worldview and theme consciousness of Loona. The theme consciousness presented in Nu not only encompasses the theme views of Loona 1/3 and Odd Eye Circle previously unveiled, but also laid the foundation for the YY lore armed with solid settings. In particular, Heart Attack MV, which was released in the next order after Eve, moved the entire lyrics of Nu and unraveled them through storytelling. Admiring and trying to resemble someone is an attempt to find one's identity from the other. However, if you don't face your true self, it's just an imitation. Adam and Hawa. Adam and Hawa fall into the trap of snakes, violate the orders of the Creator God, and pick good and evil fruits from the tree of wisdom. After picking the good and evil fruit and brightening their eyes, they realize that they are naked. When they are ashamed and cover themselves with leaves, God, who sees them, notices that they have picked up the good and evil fruit. God expels them from Eden's garden. The worldview and background of the third unit group Loona YY are based on chapter 3 of Genesis. Each member of YY eats symbolic fruit in their solo song MV, which means good or evil fruit. Just as Adam and Hawa realize that they are naked after eating good and evil fruits, the members of YY realize their identity after eating their symbolic fruits. Eve, who was an ugly duckling, realizes that she is a swan after eating an apple. Chu, who admired Eve and tried to resemble Eve, eats strawberries and faces her real self. And Gao-wan, who was hidden in a cocoon at a distance from the world, bites the pineapple to pass the rite of passage. Pineapple is a sort of wordplay. She become a member of YY. For Loona, the existence of symbolic fruit is not just a means to distinguish and give personality to characters. The symbolic fruit has an active narrative that penetrates the Loonaverse. In each solo song MV, the way they realize their identity is slightly different. In the new MV, which most actively reflects the contents of Genesis chapter 3, Eve finds identity through fall. At this time, fall was inspired by the act of Adam and Hawa being kicked out of Eden and falling to the ground, but the nature of the act is completely different. Unlike Adam and Hawa, who fell passively, Eve chooses to fall on her own. It is an active attitude to decide on one's life with one's free will without living the life set by society. Eve, the protagonist of new MV, is an active person who decides and pioneers her own life. In the Heart Attack MV, which faithfully storytelling the lyrics of New, Chu goes through a series of processes to find identity. Going through a series of processes is distinct from Eve. Chu tries to find her identity in an effort to resemble the image of Eve, the object she admires. But this is a wrong way. Chu will succeed in finding her identity only after proudly facing your true self. Chu, the protagonist of the Heart Attack MV, is also an active person in finding identity. However, the method is wrong and wanders for a long time. Eve and Chu appeared in the music video of One and Only as helpers to realize the identity of Go-wan. However, the Gao-wan only hides from them. Unlike Chu, who had been wandering for a while because she misunderstood how to realize her identity, Gao-wan vaguely feels his identity but has no courage to face the shadow, so she avoids it on her own. Not only Eve but also Chu were active in finding their identity, even though the method was wrong, but the Gao-wan was not. However, Gao-wan eventually accepts her fate against fear. Then other YY members congratulate and are willing to accept Gao-wan as a member of them. Gao-wan appears with some awareness of her identity. However, she is afraid of leaving Eden in peace and hesitates to face herself. For Olivia High, it goes through a long process until she is recognized as a member of Loona YY. Olivia High will be incorporated into the worldview of Loona, after going through all the music videos of her solo song Egoist, the unit song Love for Eva, and Hi. Olivia High of the Egoist MV climbing the stairs, Olivia High of the Love for Eva MV, which hesitates when reaching a high place, and Olivia High of the Hi MV jumping from a high place are connected narrative. In particular, Olivia High, the protagonist of the MV of Love for Eva, is a very dramatic character. The setting of Olivia High in the MV of Love for Eva is Adam and Hawa, who did not pick good and evil. It can be seen as a kind of alternative myth. It twisted the myth story to match the theme consciousness of Loona. In the MV of Love for Eva, the narrative that occupies the position of good and evil instead of symbolic fruits is rose flowers that other YY members ate apart except Olivia High. The dormitory of the Love for Eva MV metaphorically refers to Eden, and the escape of the dormitory by the members of YY metaphorically falls from Eden. In the music video of Love for Eva, Eve, Chu, and Gao-wan leave Eden after eating good and evil fruits. However, Olivia High obeys the dormitory inspector and obeys the dormitory rules. This means that it was subordinate to Eden's discipline and chose to remain in Eden. Let's talk about Olivia High's escape from Eden in another video. Olivia High of Love for Eva MV chooses to remain in Eden even after watching everyone else leave. When they deviate from the oppression and control of the Eden, it means deciding their lives on their free will and facing their identity straight. However, there are other interpretations as well. The reason why God put an apple tree in the middle of the Garden of Eden is because he knew this human nature. It's a fixed order to eat. Also, all the solos of YY are their own perspective. Bullying and Love for Eva, ignoring Chu and Heart Attack, Olivia High fallen by Eve. biased side of girls represent those who yet enlightened. As I said before, it can be seen as a kind of alternative myth. Wonder how it twisted the myth story to match the theme consciousness of Loona? Check the upcoming videos. This marks the end of my video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Thank you for watching. Also, thank you for your commitment in Loona or Loona_den.